MetLife Stadium is also like has the worst customer service of any place I've ever experienced. It's worse customer service than Walmart. Like, it is horrible at MetLife Stadium. So I think people are just perpetually pissed off. What's up, everybody? I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Johnny Montalbano. This is another edition of Moving the Goalposts. You can follow us across social media at MTGPETB. You can follow the Empty the Bench Network across social media at ETB Network. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DiMart, Johnny at Montalbano NY, even though he's not in New York anymore.
Right.
Well, he's such a New Yorker. He moved to the South in your 30s, so 20s even.
Yes. As I say, I'm a New Yorker turned South Carolinian, but I'll always be a New Yorker.
Yeah, well,
especially when it comes to my sports, especially with my sports teams.
So you can follow us across social media at the Empty the Bench Network at ETB Network. You can watch all Empty the Bench shows on YouTube.com/ETB Network. You can listen to Moving the Goalposts wherever you get your podcast, and make sure to like and subscribe. And Moving the Goalpost this podcast is presented by Playback. Stay tuned for later in the show to find out more. All right. So a lot of news happened last week. And obviously we have to talk about this Micah Parsons trade that the Cowboys did the unthinkable. The Cowboys did what they were threatening to do. Shocker. Like, people were making it sound like the trade was unthinkable when this was actually like a really predictable thing that was probably going to happen.
I would say the trade was predictable. The only thing that we just didn't know was where and when this was going to happen.
Right. I mean, in terms of like players having these standoffs with their teams, I mean, that typically results in a trade. When like a player is daring their team to trade them, it doesn't always result in a trade, but you're playing. I mean, there's a pretty good chance that they will. I mean, it's like pointing a gun to somebody's head. You might not shoot, but there's a good chance that you will. So that's kind of just how it is with these trade standoffs. In terms of the reaction to it, I think the reactions to this trade were just silly. I think that Jerry Jones, Micah Parsons, first of all, I think star players, are more likable than owners to the public in general. They are the face and the ownership is the heel, generally. And partly because I think the public gets the player's side of things a little more. I mean, people are employees more than they are. The public generally has more employees than employers, so we understand the player's point of view a little better. And also because that's who we see on TV and that's who we're rooting for, that those are the jerseys we're wearing. And so I think the public has a natural, just naturally tends to favor players over owners. And also, unless, of course, that player is really unlikable, like Deshaun Watson or something like that. And that's especially the case for somebody like Micah Parsons, who's a star player and is generally likable, compared to Jerry Jones, the Cowboys ownership, who has a reputation for like a James Dolan level. Like, he's like the James Dolan of football, basically, is how I would put it. So it's very easy for the public to just rip on. Like, the popular opinion is to just rip on the Cowboys ownership in this case. And I don't like, when it comes to like the side, I'm not taking sides or anything like that, because I think it made sense for both sides. I think it made sense for Micah Parsons to hold out and want for more money and dare them to trade him. But for everybody saying that like the Cowboys made this crazy, stupid decision to trade Micah Parsons, it's like, no, I actually think it was reasonable. I think it was reasonable for all parties. I think it was all three. I think it was I think it was a good move for the Cowboys. I think it was a good move for the Packers. And I think it was a good move for Micah Parsons. All of them, I think, made the right decision. I think Micah Parsons made the right decision to dare the Cowboys to trade him or give him his money. I think the Cowboys made the right decision to trade him, and I think the Packers made the right decision to spend the money on Micah Parsons. And the thing with that people don't seem to get, and I think that people try to fit like a basketball hole in a weird, like a basketball screw in a football hole, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I think people and it was the same thing with the Saquon trade. I think people seem to think that non-quarterbacks who are great players are far more impactful than they really are. It's something that we get about baseball, right? Like Barry Bonds is, I mean, I understand he used steroids, but that's not the point. Barry Bonds was one of the, like, might have been the best baseball player I've ever seen play outside of maybe Shohei Ohtani, but he never won a World Series. You know what I mean? And nobody ever uses that against him because we understand that baseball players are just not that impactful. But in football, we don't seem to get that. Like, it was a similar reaction to what we heard when the Giants traded Saquon. I'm sorry, not traded. When they let him go, basically. And it's like, what? Like Saquon Barkley, Micah Parsons, they only make your team marginally better, right?
Well, I will disagree with you on that because you're comparing. I understand the comparison, but Saquon is a running back, and this is a all-pro pass rusher, and you just don't give up on guys like this right away. Now, I think the real blowback with all this, I think, is twofold. It's the timing of the trade a week out before the regular season starts up, and also you're trading him in conference. I'm not surprised that he got dealt, but I was really surprised about the timing of it and really where Micah went, because teams that really, I mean, everybody could use an all-pro pass rusher for sure, but I mean, we were hearing reports of like the Eagles being interested, but to trade him in conference and to trade him to a team that you're only going to be playing, you're going to be playing in 4 weeks is, a big surprise. And really, I mean, what you got back for him was 2 first-rounders and a 30-year-old player. I get why, because this has been going on for 6 months now. I mean, Mike has been holding for a long contract for a while now. And of the 3 players that we've been hearing that we know about in the offseason with the holdout/hold in, whether that's McLaurin, whether that's Hendrickson or Parsons, this was the one that I felt like was going to result in a trade. I think the other 2 was just silly, but those 2 ended up getting resolved. This one, though, I mean, to do this a week out before the season, I felt like was a bit of a surprise. I mean, that the surprise in terms of how long this took. I mean, this has been pretty much a long time in the making. And then to trade him in conference to the Packers, and from the Packers side, I mean, this is a big. I mean, this you saw. I mean, obviously, I know, Nick, you're a big betting expert guy. I mean, this elevated the Packers to being now one of the clear favorites now in not only in the North, but in the whole conference now. So, so it's finally come to a head. I don't want to say I feel sorry for Cowboy fans, but I mean, right now, when you look at them, I mean, this was a team that going into this week as they prepare for the game on Thursday against the Super Bowl champion Eagles, I felt like at best was an average team. Now they're well below average because now you don't have your star pass rusher. I know, and then the thing that maybe also frustrates you if you're a Cowboys fan is a couple of days after this trade, you go out there and you extend Deron Bland, their corner, for 4 years and $92 million. And like, all right, I can extend Bland, but I'm not going to extend Parsons. I'm like, this is such backwards logic by Dallas. And unfortunately, this has just been what the Cowboys have done here these last couple of years. And this is stuff that's going to continue to happen until Jerry Jones gives up not only being the owner, but the GM. And look, he can stay as the owner. Jerry Jones is a great business owner, but he's a horrible football owner and he's a horrible football GM. That's the facts. I mean, look at the last couple of years here. There's no team that's done less with more than the Dallas Cowboys over the last couple of years. And now you have these Micah Parsons don't grow on trees, folks. Saquon Barkley can grow on trees. I mean, you can go out there and get a running back in the late round, and maybe he won't put up like a 2,000-yard season right away, but Barkley, but he can give you production. Guys like Micah Parsons don't come out of the draft. They don't come out every single year. So to give up on him the way they have, I felt like it's good for Parsons. It's good for the Packers. It's not good for the Cowboys. I mean, Jerry Jones can go out there and spin this any way he wants and saying, oh, this is great for the Cowboys. It's going to make us better. Jerry, these guys don't grow on trees. You can't tell me this makes you better, all right? When you already have a bunch of holes to begin with, you got a division that there are two other teams that are way better than you and light years ahead of you. I can't hear that from you.
Well, let me push back on that a little bit with the running back thing with Saquon Barkley. I mean, I think running backs like Saquon Barkley don't grow on trees either. I mean, the Giants will probably, I could be wrong about this, but there's a good chance that for decades, the Giants will not have a running back that puts up the production that Saquon Barkley did.
Well, Saquon would not put up but Saquon wouldn't put up that kind of production if he was on the Giants roster of last year or even this year.
No, I don't disagree.
And that's not a knock on Saquon, but I'm just saying that he's in a great system. I thought the Eagles were smart to get him because they built a great team around him. They built an offensive line that he was able to run in between tackles instead of having to run to the outside, having to do those little slant passes. So he got into the right system, and that's a credit to Howie Roseman, who is the best GM in football, not Jerry Jones. But yeah, you're right. Those guys don't grow on trees. We're talking about maybe Genty having a great career there. We don't know if he's going to be like that, but
most drafts don't even have players that could be as great as when I say like as the production of Saquon Barkley, I mean the production that he had on the Giants. It's unlikely that they're going to just draft a guy that ends up being that good, and running backs don't last long at all. So I would say that, but I would say that, like, okay, you're right. Guys like Micah Parsons, they don't grow on trees. Just like great running backs don't grow on trees. Edge rushers don't grow on trees. The reason I think now I don't disagree with what you're saying, that they traded him in division and they didn't get a whole lot out of it. Like they probably could have had a better deal. And that is true. They certainly could have had a better deal. A 30-year-old defensive end and two, I think it was first-round picks. I guess they could have done a little better. So the deal itself is not so much what I'm talking about. It's more the decision to trade him. And I think it was the right move because, and for largely the same reasons, I think the Giants moving on from Saquon was the right move. A player like Micah Parsons makes your team marginally better. It doesn't turn you from it's not like having a great quarterback that makes your team from, okay to like great or something like that, or bad to good. Micah Parsons makes your team, a guy like him makes you marginally better. And the Cowboys spending $47 million a year. Keep in mind, Micah Parsons on paper, at least, is very overpaid. And I'm not saying the Packers overpaid. I'm not saying the Packers shouldn't have spent the money, but just on paper, he's overpaid relative to his production. Is he really the best non-quarterback ever, or the best non-quarterback in the league right now, or the best defensive player? I think most people would say he's not. And for the Cowboys to spend $47 million a year over the next 4 years when they're not even contenders in the NFC. When you look at a team like the Packers, them being marginally better makes a world of a difference because they're really Super Bowl contenders. They're in a tough division, and being a little bit better, being that little bit better in the Packers situation matters a whole lot, especially for them because they always needed an edge rusher. So for the Packers, it makes a lot of sense. For the Cowboys to be marginally better, it doesn't do a whole lot for them. Even with Micah Parsons, it's not crazy to think that the Cowboys could finish last in their division. And the most likely scenario is to finish third in their division. So let me just look at the odds. I'm just going to, because, I have to bring up betting odds. And betting odds don't mean everything.
Right.
But they give you a lot of information.
Uh-huh.
And Vegas is closer to the truth than anybody else, regardless of what anybody tells you, because they have to be. So here's the betting odds right now in the to make the playoffs in the NFC. So I'm not going to read them all off, but currently there's two NFC teams with lower odds to make the playoffs than the Cowboys, and that's the Saints and the Giants. bottom of the barrel of the NFC. Giants are plus 500. Saints are plus 850. They're the second worst, lowest odds other than the Browns. The Cowboys are plus 270. They're tied right now with the Panthers at plus 270. So basically, they're tied for the third lowest odds, tied with the Panthers for the third lowest odds to make the playoffs. So basically, they would be, if they had paid and by the way, above the Panthers is the Bears at plus 185, which is a really, really big difference. So if they had, paid Micah Parsons and kept him on the roster with Micah Parsons, they would be the fourth least likely team to make the playoffs in the NFC. So you're spending it would affect the odds a little, slightly, not a whole, probably not enough to the point where they'd be ahead of the Bears at plus 185. I don't think. So basically, if they had paid Micah, if they had kept with Micah Parsons on the roster, it's pretty safe to say, the fourth least likely team in the NFC to even make the playoffs. So you're spending $47 million a year. I don't know how much of it was guaranteed.
So the contract that he got with the Packers was 188 with 120 million guaranteed.
All right, so $188 million over a course of 4 years, $120 million guaranteed, which, by the way, with the salary cap, will be a bit of an albatross around the necks of the Cowboys, to just be the fourth least likely team in the NFC to even make the playoffs. Is that really that good of a payoff? That's just how I see it. So you're going to be paying $47 million a year for this star player to really just probably not even make the playoffs. People are making, I would agree if the Cowboys were, maybe 2 years ago, my view would be a little different when the Cowboys kind of were contenders. But right now in this NFC, which is very deep, outside of three really, really bad teams like the Panthers, the Giants, and the Saints, it's a pretty deep conference. And I just don't think the Cowboys, even with Micah Parsons, really have much of a fighting chance. Even in their division, they're most likely finishing in third place. That's the most likely outcome, even with Micah Parsons. I just don't think the payoff makes a whole lot of sense for the Cowboys. And, like I said, with the salary cap, spending that much money on one player, they're not going to have room. They're not going to be able to sign anybody else.
Well, and that goes back to something that, we've been talking about for 2 years with the Cowboys, and what exactly is their direction? Because, this off season, they go out there and they get George Pickens from the Steelers, and it's all right, so now you're teaming him up with CeeDee Lamb. That sounds like they're doing pretty good on offense. They got Jake Ferguson, the young tight end, but it's Jerry's telling you they're going all in. They made no moves last year, and it's well, if you're going to do this, then why not just blow the team up then? But it's what exactly are they doing? And then if that was the case, then if you wanted to get maximum value from Micah Parsons, if you knew you were not going to be able to re-sign him, then why did you not trade him earlier in the offseason? Why are you waiting till right? Why are you not waiting till a week before the regular season starts when he doesn't really have that lot of value, when he's been dealing with a little bit of a back issue supposedly in camp, and he's not practicing? So you basically traded him at his lowest value.
Yeah, no, so that is absolutely true. I think that if they were going to make this move, you probably should have moved on from Micah Parsons. They probably should have moved on from him earlier. I think that would have been the smarter decision to make.
The logic that the logic that the Cowboys are running their organization is one that makes no sense and is totally backwards. Because what exactly are you doing? Are you saying you're all in without making any moves? And if you're going to rebuild, well, why are you not starting that when you could have, drafted somebody earlier on, maybe get some higher picks and such? Now you traded him. You got 2 first-round picks from the Packers, who right now are pretty clear favorites. They're going to be maybe the earliest might be in the 20s, because now this catapults them up. Remember, the Packers have the youngest roster in the NFL, and they've got some pretty good talent on that team. I think they're still lacking a star receiver, but all of a sudden now this Packers team, which has made the playoffs in the last couple of years, is still got to be considered a contender.
Yeah. And the thing with the Cow, and you said you were surprised it took this long. I mean, I'm not surprised at all. The Dallas always does this.
I'm not surprised because the Cowboys can't run their organization properly, and that's totally on Jerry Jones. But I'm just surprised that it took this long. If this has been going on for like 6 months now with Parsons, and you keep saying you're going to sign him. If you knew you weren't going to sign him, why are you waiting till a week before the regular season?
Well, apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but I mean, take it with a grain of salt because, but Jerry Jones said that he offered him close to $200 million back in March, and Micah Parsons didn't take it. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I tend to not look. I don't know. You can take it with a grain of salt. That's just what Jerry Jones said once. And I think Micah Parsons, I think he's represented by Jay-Z's group, Rock Nation.
Something like that,
yeah. I could be wrong about that. And, so Micah Parsons seems that it's not true. I don't know. Either way, if what Jerry Jones said is true, then I think that Micah Parsons maybe just wanted, because he was offered, he got $188 million. It probably, or maybe it was maybe he didn't get enough guaranteed money. That might have been the reason why. But like, I see a lot of people comparing this to like the Luka trade because it's in the same city in Dallas. By the way, it almost never occurred to me that the Mavericks, even though it's in the name, that the Mavericks and the Cowboys play in the same city. I just never thought like they seem like such different teams. Like Mavericks fans and Cowboys fans are the same people. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, and both delusional GMs too. So it both makes sense.
But but I saw people making that comparison. I just think it's nothing like that at all. I mean, first of all, the Luka trade came out of nowhere. Like we saw on Twitter that Luka Doncic was traded. We were like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, late night trade. I remember that quite well. It happened late at night. I remember waking up that early the next morning to that. And yeah, I thought I was in a dream, and I had to make sure I wasn't watching like The Onion or checking The Onion online. That was incredible. I mean, you're right, though. That was out of nowhere. This has been built. This feels like it's been building up for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and also, like I would have been less surprised if a war broke out in the middle of the night than that Luka Doncic trade. That would have been less of a big deal than the Luka trade. Yeah. So nobody ever saw it coming. It was all done in secret. And the other thing, like this was just a typical standoff. So it's not surprising. A standoff can go one of two ways. The player either gets re-signed or he gets traded. It's not a shock that this would happen. This was going on for like 6 months. The other reason, and also Luka didn't want to be traded. He really didn't want to be. He wanted to stay there. Micah Parsons was daring Dallas to trade him. I think that's the difference. And he was doing so publicly for like 6 months. So I don't think it's the same thing at all. I also just don't think that a trade in the NFL, unless you're trading like a quarterback, which never really happens, a trade in the NFL could never really be as impactful as the Luka trade. I mean, that changed the whole dynamic of the Western Conference. And so I just don't think it's really all that similar.
It's just similar because it involved two Dallas players. That's the similarity. That's where it starts and ends.
Moving the goalposts is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, rubbing your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And now back to the show. The Jets and Steelers will be playing at MetLife Stadium at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Of course, the NFL, I mean, I'm not saying the NFL is scripted or anything, but the results are as close to the WWE as you would compared to any other sport. Like it's not scripted, but if it were scripted, this is kind of how it would go, at least in this particular instance. So Aaron Rodgers, of course, the Steelers and Jets are playing week one. And I think the ultimate question is, how will Rodgers be greeted at MetLife?
Well, you're the Jet fan, so how would you greet him if you were going to the game?
How would I greet him is different than how Jet fans will greet him.
Well, I'm just saying you're a Jet fan. That's why I would ask you first. I would say, but I mean, you're the Jet fan, so I would have you go first.
So there's two questions: how I would greet him, or how I think he should be greeted, versus how he will be greeted. How I would greet him is, if anything, I would cheer. I would clap for him. I wish him no ill will at all. I mean, was he great with the Jets? No. He was also 40 years old. It takes a lot for me to really hate players. Generally speaking, I mean, there aren't that many athletes that were on my team that I just absolutely hate and would just boo if they came back to the stadium. I mean, I could, it's possible. I wouldn't say Aaron Rodgers really reaches that level. I mean, look, he came to the Jets, he tore his Achilles. Which, you know, it could have happened, but I mean, that's just bad luck essentially. And he wasn't great with the Jets. He had kind of an okay season, but everything else was also a circus. So it's hard to just simply pin it on Aaron Rodgers. It's not like, oh, you know, Aaron Rodgers had everything. I mean, we made a bunch of trades for him, but the organization was such a mess. So it's hard to just blame that all on Aaron Rodgers. And he was okay. He was good for a 40-year-old quarterback, is how I would put it. Like, people saying Aaron Rodgers sucks. I mean, he's 40. I mean, like that's pretty good context that actually matters. I mean, I didn't hear anybody say Peyton Manning sucked, and he wasn't even 40, and he was terrible. So it's a weird claim. And I kind of wish him well, actually. Like, I really do wish him well. I mean, sure, it didn't work out with the Jets, but I mean, that's always kind of happened with us. Now, in terms of how he will be greeted, he's going to be booed without question, because I think Jet fans overwhelmingly don't like him. And I think that it takes a lot for me. It would honestly take a lot for me to to boo an athlete. Like, there's really not that many that I would actually just boo. I think the concept of booing is weird to me. I think but I really just don't really hold. I kind of wish him well. I guess you could say I'm sort of an Aaron Rodgers apologist, and on some level, I am. Even though Aaron Rodgers is a great player and everybody recognizes that, I think he's underrated. And I think he's underrated because of his personality. People like to hate him, especially in the past 4 or 5 years. And he does have a personality that seems very prickly in a lot of ways. I don't dispute that. Like, he doesn't even have a relationship with his own family. I mean, that does strike me as a little odd. Like he does strike me as odd in a lot of ways. But because of that, people like to believe that he's not that he's just he's overrated. He's not all that great. And it's I just don't think that's true. I think that's just objectively kind of silly. So I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but if I were to have an underrated list, I think Aaron Rodgers is underrated, just because of how the public just doesn't like him for him, and they translate that to football. So, but yes, the bottom line is Jet fans will boo him, and he wasn't always the problem. Sometimes he was, but he wasn't always the problem. You know, we had basically a glorified gym teacher as our head coach for most of last season.
I think the problem with it is, if you're going to boo him, I actually feel like what the boos might be actually going more towards the front office. Because if you remember what the Jets did when they brought in Rodgers, and you could say this is because of him or not, is they basically brought a lot of his players and people that he liked into the organization. Remember, they brought in Nathaniel Hackett to be the OC. They brought in Randall Cobb. They brought in Alan Lazard and his Packer buddies. And I think that was part of the problem. So if I was to boo him, I'd really be booing the front office, because they really didn't have a backup plan for him for a 40-year-old quarterback. And, you know, that's why I feel like that's where the Steelers might run into a problem with him, is that he's going to be 41 years old. And I just don't really know what kind of production you can get out of him. I mean, his numbers when he was a Jet wasn't that bad, but it was the fact that they just didn't really have the roster around him. And it was a totally new experience for Rodgers. He had been doing this in the NFC North, where he had two favorable opponents that he would always beat up on. When he was going to the AFC, East, you had the Bills, you had even in the AFC in general, the Chiefs, who I know he never faced, but a tougher challenge in terms of opponents in the AFC. I think it's going to be a mix. I think it'll be a mix there on Sunday at MetLife. I think you will have some Jet fans that'll cheer him because they know that he, was very unfortunate. His first year ended in just 4 plays, and his second year was all right, but the rest of the roster just wasn't really constructed around him. But there will be some fans that will boo him because he didn't take him over the top, and also I think his antics do turn off a lot of people. I mean, he hasn't done anything stupid like anything criminal, but he says a lot of stupid stuff. He doesn't go to this extreme, but I think of it like Curt Schilling in baseball. Curt Schilling hasn't made the Hall of Fame, and a lot of that is because the writers don't like the stuff that he says. But if you look at his numbers in his career, I mean, Curt Schilling is Hall of Fame worthy. I think it's going to be the same thing with Rodgers' career. I think Rodgers will get into the Hall of Fame, but he may not make it right away because there will be some voters that will be turned away by the stuff that he says and does. But it's one thing to say it; it's another thing to go out there and do like what Deshaun Watson did. I mean, it's two totally different things.
Well, he's not a Hall of Famer regardless. But
yeah, but I mean, what he did, before he went to Cleveland, the whole Saj thing, it would keep him out of the Hall of Fame in general. What Rodgers said and stuff is just. It's stupid, but it shouldn't take away from the career that he's had. I think the other thing that's probably turned people away from Rodgers a little bit is the fact that he's only won 1 Super Bowl and he has struggled in the playoffs. Now, look, I mean, I think we put a little bit too much into the playoffs in all these sports. Dan Marino, of course, I always say Dan Marino is one of the best, and he never made it to never won a Super Bowl. So. But I think honestly, Nick, when I'll have the game on in my favorite bar on Sunday when I'm watching one of the many 8 games in that 1 o'clock Eastern window. I think it's going to be a mix, and you'll see the Twitter videos and the Facebook videos and all that stuff. I think you're going to have a mixed reaction on Sunday.
I agree, it's going to be mixed. I just think it's going to be like probably 75-25 boos.
Okay,
that's what I think it's going to be. Like, I know it's going to be a mix. I should have made that a little clearer. But I think that the crowd will be more against him than for him. I also think that, like, the reaction of the crowd is not necessarily the best proxy for how Jet fans feel, because I think Jet fans that go to the game or have season tickets and things like that might not have especially like, if you've been drinking beers and tailgating and things like that. It might not be a perfect measure of how Jet fans generally feel, because football does not bring out the best in people. That's one thing I learned. It's easy to be pissed off at MetLife Stadium. And also, I mean, I will say MetLife Stadium is also has the worst customer service of any place I've ever experienced. It's worse customer service than Walmart. Like, it is horrible at MetLife Stadium. So I think people are just perpetually pissed off at MetLife Stadium. And like I said, they're probably, they were probably drinking beers in the parking lot. And, it's not how they would normally react if they weren't inebriated. So I think that's certainly a little bit of a factor. So in terms of the playoffs, I think that I think that people just associate quarterbacks with winning. You know what I mean? I think quarterbacks I think people react way too much to he only won 1 Super Bowl, which is a weird claim, because it's like nobody says that about any other Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, nobody says Brett Favre only won 1 Super Bowl. Drew Brees only won 1 Super Bowl. So he's just being held to a higher standard than other all-time great quarterbacks. And by the way, Peyton Manning won 1 Super Bowl with the Colts. Basically, he won when Peyton Manning was actually good. He only won 1 Super Bowl. So, I mean, I just think it's a weird argument, because and by the way, when people talk about Super Bowls, it doesn't even really correlate with their own careers. And what I mean by that is the best careers of quarterbacks, they're not always winning the Super Bowl. I mean, John Elway didn't win a Super Bowl when he was at his best. John Elway won a Super Bowl when he was on his way out. Like, people forget that. So if your argument is the number of Super Bowls is what matters, well, you would also have to logically argue that, well, that means it was the best of their careers, the seasons that they won Super Bowls, which is not true for almost anybody. I mean, like, for some quarterbacks, if anything, it's a reverse correlation. I mean, on a percentage basis, when Peyton Manning was at his worst, he won the Super Bowl at a higher rate than when he was at his best. So he was at his worst for maybe 2 years, and he won a Super Bowl. And he won one Super Bowl, and he was at his best for what, like 12 seasons, and or however long he was in the league. And that's when, or close to 20 actually. And he only won one Super Bowl in that span. So here's when Peyton Manning was on the Colts, which is really when he was at his best. He went 19-19. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong. His record with the Colts in the playoffs was 9-10 in the playoffs. I don't know all this off the top of my head, so I'm just looking it up on Football Reference.
Well, that's what I actually have Rodgers' numbers up too, and I was going to talk about his last season with the Jets, and then his playoff numbers. Which, if you look at his playoff numbers, it's actually amazing that he's 11-10. But that may speak volumes to the team more than Rodgers. And it actually would speak to your argument about how Rodgers is a very underrated quarterback. And if you look at his numbers, he absolutely is underrated. Yeah,
I mean, he's one of the few great quarterbacks that we've seen that isn't prone to throwing a lot of interceptions.
By the way, last year with the Jets, an almost 4,000-yard passing season, started all 17 games, a near 4,000-yard passing season, and a 2.5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio.
Yeah. He was Peyton Manning's total record in the playoffs was 14-13. Outside of that last season when he was really not good, when he was not good that last season. So if you do the math, that's 11-10. So basically, until the last season of Peyton Manning's career, you said Aaron Rodgers' quarterback his record in the playoffs is 11-10.
It's 11-10.
So basically,
just over 3-to-1 touchdown interception ratio.
So Aaron so basically, Peyton Manning, until the last season of his career, had the exact same record in the playoffs as Aaron Rodgers, and definitely stats that were not as good as Aaron Rodgers. And yet, people forget that people said the same thing about Peyton Manning. People just forget about it because he won a second Super Bowl. Like that's literally what happened. Like people, and I don't know why the public has this perception that the difference between one Super Bowl and two Super Bowls is so big when it really just doesn't tell you a whole lot about a quarterback. Like when if you want to talk about like drastic differences in winning, like Brady versus Rodgers or almost anybody else, I understand that argument completely. I very much agree with it because you can't explain the winning that Brady and Mahomes have done without like just their overall greatness. But the difference between one Super Bowl and two Super Bowls doesn't really tell you a whole lot. I mean, Russell Wilson was a bad play call away from winning two Super Bowls. I mean, like it doesn't really. I mean, Jalen Hurts was a questionable pass interference call away from like winning two Super Bowls. I just don't think it really tells you all that much.
Yeah, it just speaks to the narrative that we just focus way too much on championships with all these players in all these sports.
Yeah, because we're a very hyper like individualized society and celebrity driven. So we kind of try to fit this individualistic whole into a team sport, which doesn't make it's a team game. That's the whole thing. It's a team game.
And just two quick things before we wrap up this thing with Rodgers and MetLife. I think this discussion would be a little bit different also if, number one, he trashed the Jets on his way out, which I don't recall if he ever did trash anybody on the organization as a whole. Number one. And number two, if he ended up going to say like their biggest rivals, obviously in division with the Patriots, the Dolphins or the Bills, and ended up starting, and then that was a week one game and he was the starter in that situation, I think it would be also a different story. The fact that he's going to the Steelers, who the Jets only see maybe every couple of years, it's a totally different. It should change it too. So that's why I think it will be a mix there on Sunday. But I will actually listen and check out social media right before kickoff on Sunday to see what that's like.
So some college football news. First of all, Lee Corso, final college game day. I feel like Lee Corso's goodbye tour has been going on forever.
Well, if this one was official, I mean, we've noticed for the last couple of years that he wasn't making every show, every appearance. Especially like the ones like out west or stuff like that. But this was determined a long time ago that he'd come back for one more show, and for it to end where it started at Ohio State. I actually was a little touched by this. This is a staple of fall Saturday mornings is the headgear. Because it's a different feeling. It's different than any other picks segment. Like, look, we don't do anything like that when we make our picks on the network. But it's
we don't really have the.
I almost had something for one team, but I couldn't do it as well as he did. Look, I mean, game day is the premier pregame show in sports. Forget just college football. In sports, it is the premier thing. Yeah. And obviously, this is going to be it's going to be a miss. I'll say this though, I think game day's still in great shape. I think Nick Saban's been a tremendous addition the last 2 years. Pat McAfee has been tremendous, and I actually think, and I know they won't do this, and somebody else had brought this up too. I think it was Jimmy Trania from SI. I actually think they should end game day now. If you want to change it, instead of just closing on the picks, I think they should end it with McAfee's kick. Because if you think about it, that has been, and they've started to slowly make this transition when they brought in McAfee a couple of years ago to the game day set. That seems to be the thing now is, and you notice that even on the shows that Lee wasn't on in the last couple of years, and when McAfee was on, was that kick segment seems to be like the thing now. The new thing. So if they wanted to end it, I think it would be very, very tough because if the guys like if Reese, Desmond, Kirk, and Saban and McAfee are inside the stadium, how are you going to do the kick segment at the end? But I think that would be a cool way to end the show and be different because how are you going to follow up what Lee Corso has done and what he's meant to not only college football but to game day? I don't think there's anything you can do except not only just even McAfee's kick, but if you notice the way that McAfee starts the show, starts game day on Saturday morning. I mean, that's you can see the little bit of transition. So obviously, though, I mean, there's so many memorable moments, and game day will not be the same. But I still think they're actually in great hands going forward.
Yeah. Well, so do you think they should just name it something different?
Well, or what the pick segment?
No. College game day. You're saying they should just name it?
No. I'm saying they should end it differently instead of ending with the picks. Like how they would always end with.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I thought you wanted them to end the show and call it.
And maybe what they should also do is, and I didn't watch most of it Saturday morning, but they should say it's the Lee Corso desk there too. They want to really have his namesake on it. I think they should do that. But if you want to, I mean, because think about this upcoming Saturday when they're in when they're there for the Michigan Oklahoma game. It's tough. How are you going to it's weird to end it on a pick. It feels like because you would always end it with his headgear. I feel like you should end it with a McAfee kick instead of doing it in the middle. We'll see how they do. I'm sure they've had this in the works, obviously, because they knew that this was going to be his last show for the longest time. So I'll be curious to see what it's like going forward. But I still think, obviously, we'll miss him, and there's so many memorable moments. But I still think game day's in tremendous hands.
Oh yeah, obviously. I mean, it would be hard for them. It would be hard for them not to be. And also on the Fox Sports side of things, their version of Big Noon Kickoff.
Right.
So Dave Portnoy was not banned from Ohio State.
Nick, can I just interrupt real quick? I forgot. I should also mention this too. Kudos to Big Noon Kickoff and Fox for carrying Lee's final pick there at Ohio State. They did carry it. So kudos to the guys there at Big Noon Kickoff before I trashed them for this. So go ahead.
Okay, so he was not banned from Ohio State. There were rumors that Ohio State banned him, which I believed because it sounds like something, even though it's an obviously stupid decision, it sounds like something Ohio State might do. It's not a shocking thing. And then, of course, he like played it. He like milked the whole thing. But it turns out that he's just not going to be in any of the stadiums, and College Game Day made that choice. I'm sorry, Big Noon Kickoff made that choice. I don't understand this. Did I get that wrong at all?
No, you were right, and it to me then why the heck did they even bring him? I didn't watch Big Noon Kickoff on Saturday. I mean, I was on vacation for my main job this week, but I was going to obviously keep it on game day because of Lee Corso's final appearance. But I had social media on because I knew they would get a lot of the clips, and I got to tell you, I cringed half the time watching those clips with Portnoy. I don't know what Fox is trying to get at. I don't know if they're trying to counter McAfee by bringing Portnoy in, but I just don't see the fit. I really don't. Now, the thing with Big Noon Kickoff that's tough is they don't travel to a variety of stadiums. Like a lot of the time they're at Ohio State because Ohio State's playing at noon and they're at home, and because of Urban Meyer being there. I don't see the fit, and I'm not trying to overreact to 1 week, but when they made this announcement a while back that Portnoy was going to be part of this, I'm like, I just don't see. I mean, it almost is more of an attention grabber than anything else.
Do you think it's that much different though than ESPN hiring McAfee? I mean, it's really just them trying to attract the younger sports fan who he appeals to, and it's not like he doesn't. I mean, he's not an analyst. He doesn't have experience playing like McAfee does, but he knows college football fairly well. I mean, Barstool does have the Pick'em show and the college football show. So it's not that crazy to me that they would do it. I just don't get why he's not a part of like the pregame.
But that's the thing. Like, so you're right in both those regards. I think it is a counter to McAfee. I think McAfee's better because he's got experience and he's got a bigger brand, I feel like, too. I mean, you see ESPN do that. I mean, they televising, they're simulcasting his show. I mean, McAfee's got more. I mean, it's not a knock on Barstool or anything else, but I mean, why are you bringing him in now if he can't be inside the stadium? That's what Big Noon Kickoff. They're inside the stadiums when they're making their picks and towards the end of the show. So he's going to be on for parts of it. This would almost be like if Stephen A. joined Game Day, and I think that would be a disaster. I know they're trying to put I know they're trying to put him on everything, but I'm like, you put Stephen A. on Game Day, and I feel like it's the equivalent.
Yeah, I guess I see that a little bit too. But I mean, like Stephen A. Smith just never says no to an assignment. He's just
and neither does ESPN because they're always clipping everything he says on First Take. I mean, I don't know, but I've never been a Big Noon fan anyway because I think Game Day is the premier thing. I don't even think it's the second best pregame show that's on Saturday mornings in terms of college football.
But what is
SEC Nation?
It probably look.
I actually, I'll be honest with you. I watched it. I DVR'd, and I think also it's also because I'm down here a lot. But I think also the talent on SEC Nation I think is tremendous. I love Laura Rutledge. I think she's one of the premier people in the business, both college and pro. Roman Harper's awesome. I like Jordan Rodgers. I like Tebow, and Paul Feinbaum always gets people riled up. So I always love SEC Nation as a backup to Game Day. I'll actually, when I'm home or I'm DVRing it, I'll have both on at the same time watching it.
Yeah. Well, to me,
I really think this Portnoy thing honestly is an attention grabber more than anything else. And now if you're going to see him on Fox News on Saturday mornings on game as a counter to this, that I just don't think it's a good look at all.
Well, but I don't think it's like from my understanding, it wasn't just going to be him. It was going to be like a revolving door of a bunch of Barstool personalities.
That makes no sense, though.
I think it makes more sense than just having him, though. You know,
but then why are they? I mean, I know that Barstool and Fox are like in conjunction now, but
not really. Just Portnoy is often a guest on Barstool. On Barstool, on Fox.
I don't see the fit. I think it makes no sense. And then have a revolving door of Barstool guys on this. I mean, you wouldn't see that on any other show.
That's true. You wouldn't. I don't look. I think that Fox Sports tries to do a lot of things that are just sort of different and innovative, and that just kind of seems what they've been doing. You never look. I don't know how it's going to work. Even if it doesn't work out right away, it might end up working out in the long run. Look, Fox, like, I remember when Get Up first started on ESPN, and the ratings were like terrible. And and the show was still on. Like, it ended up being okay. That could happen in this case. I don't know. But either way, even if it doesn't work out, I mean, Portnoy is going to be fine. Barstool's going to be fine.
I'm not thinking this is that Barstool's going to crater because of this. Yeah. I just don't see the fit. And I know they're trying to react to. I think this was also a reaction to ESPN with McAfee from a couple of years ago, and now that Corso retired, so it kind of could go hand in hand.
Yeah. So I want to get into some college football.
Yeah.
Arch Manning overhyped because he didn't play well against Ohio State, and he didn't. Now I feel like the expectations for Arch Manning were unfair to him. They were unfair to him. It almost reminds me a little bit of Caleb Williams. Remember last year going into the season, all these sports analysts all these commentators were just talking about how great Caleb Williams was going to be. And they were like, he's going to lead the Bears to the Super Bowl this year. And those were not uncommon takes that you saw, to the point where they had expectations set for him that were just so high that it was unfair to Caleb Williams. I think it's a similar thing with Arch Manning. It's like, okay, so Arch Manning, it's his first true start on the road. He hasn't thrown a pass. He hasn't taken a snap. I don't even know if he ever even took a snap outside of Austin. And so it's his first road start. And at Ohio State, which is they're the reigning national champions and a very tough defense. And people are making it sound like this is some type of colossal failure, that his first ever start, he didn't look good. I mean, like, I'm not going to overreact to this. I don't even think it's going to affect Texas' season that much, other than maybe Ohio State will get the 1 seed and they won't be able to stay the 1 seed because Ohio State beat them. But it's not going to affect Texas that much. If Texas wins the SEC, they're going to be fine. I think Arch Manning is going to be fine. And I feel like this is a type of game that happens where it's a big deal when it happens, but then everybody forgets about it. Remember when Ohio State, the last time they won a national championship, not this past season, but 10 years before that, at the start of the 2014 season, Ohio State lost to Virginia Tech at the start of the season, at home, I think. And it was like a really big deal that Ohio State lost to Virginia Tech. Does anybody even remember that anymore? That's why I'm saying remember when this happened. Only the true college football fans really remember that. So everybody kind of forgot about that. And, they ended up winning the national championship. It didn't matter. Even if they didn't win the national championship, it wouldn't have really mattered. That's what this is. Like this, a lot of times in college football, a loss happens and it's a big deal in the moment, and then everybody forgets about it. And this is the type of thing where I think people like us are going to say, remember, even when Arch Manning had his first start, he was bad. Yeah. He didn't look Arch Manning. People forget Arch Manning was like, this is us 20 years from now. Arch Manning, he wasn't good his first start. And that's going to be like, people are going to just forget about that. Like, that's what I think is probably going to happen. People, I just don't think understand. First of all, Arch Manning is barely old enough to vote. And he's not old enough to drink legally. And he's not old enough to like rent a car or anything like that. So people sometimes forget how young like college athletes often are. People forget how young 19-year-olds are, or in his case, 21. So he is old enough to drink, whatever. But people forget like just how young he is. And also people just don't seem to realize how difficult it is for a quarterback to play on the road, a guy who's inexperienced like he is. People just don't seem to understand that. So I'm not going to overreact to this. I don't think it's a big deal. I think Texas is going to be fine. I think Arch Manning is going to be fine.
Yeah, Nick D, this was a very tough spot for him. I mean, to go, like you said, start on the road against the reigning national champions. I know that they lost some bit in the draft, but they don't. But they retooled as good as any team in the nation. But Arch came in to Saturday with 95 career pass attempts. He needs more time. That's what it is. The college guys don't have a preseason. I mean, what's like their off-season program really like? It's not really a whole lot. I mean, you have that spring game, but then otherwise, like, what else are you really doing between the spring game and August? I mean, when you're not on campus, you're not really doing much. So he needs more time. And I think you noticed that with a lot of the top teams in college this past weekend, because we were talking about that with Arch. We were talking about that with Ohio State and Julian Sand. We talked about that. We were going to talk about that with Alabama and Ty Simpson. We were going to talk about that with my Notre Dame Fighting Irish and CJ Carr. A lot of these top teams were going through changes in QB, and it's tough, and it's a lot of pressure on them when they don't have really a lot of a preseason like they do in the pros. And Arch came in with 95 career pass attempts, and he wasn't really starting. He was backing up Ewers. We saw him. We had talked about it last year, like how he would come in. He came in when Ewers was either hurt or they're making a dramatic change. So I think there was a lot of overhype coming into this game, and people were expecting instant results. I think I agree with you. The way that the 12-team playoff is set up, it allows these top teams to have a game like Saturday, but you can't really have a second or a third one. And I think Texas will be all right. I will be curious now to see how he does bounce back after this one. Let's say he has another bad one, then maybe it's a little bit of a different story. But it's very hard to say that, and I think there was a lot of hype, and especially also because I think it's the last name that really just sets a lot of people off. It's Manning. That's what it is. I mean, let's say if Pat Mahomes had somebody coming into school and he was starting, if he had a Mahomes, I think we'd be talking about something kind of similar.
Yeah, if his last name was not Manning, it wouldn't have been. If his last name was Manson, or I don't think
it's Arch Jones,
Arch Jones, or something like that. Whatever the common generic name is, Arch Smith, something like that. It wouldn't have been that big of a deal. It's only because of his lineage.
Yeah, exactly.
That is. So I'm not going to overreact to it. My reaction to Alabama, I think, is a little different. Because Alabama got killed by Florida State. And, in terms of how it's going to, Ohio State and Texas, they're almost, even if Ohio State had lost, I mean, they're almost locks to make the playoffs anyway. Alabama, got killed by Florida State. This game was not close. It was 34-17, or 31-17, whatever it was. I think this is a big problem for Alabama, because Alabama was just bad on every possible level. I mean, look, Florida State, I think Florida State did a really good job hiring Gus Malzahn, who is a really, really good head coach and a really overqualified offensive coordinator. And I think that, they did a really good job. But Alabama, they just, I don't know. It's like they can't get out of their own way. And Alabama is a team that has very high expectations. They're in a difficult conference. They're playing a difficult schedule. And they have a lot of games that they, if they play like this, are they going to win more than 8 games? I mean, I could pull up their schedule, but that's going to be a big problem, because Alabama, they have expectations for their teams. I mean, Alabama under Saban was, one of always a championship contender. I mean, now under Kalen DeBoer, Alabama, they're not even making the 12-team playoff. I mean, they didn't even make the 12-team playoff. They're borderline playoff teams with a 12-team playoff. And I think on some level, it's a little bit unfair to Kalen DeBoer, because Saban's the greatest ever. How do you replace that? But I think it's going to be a big problem for Alabama.
Nick, do you think about this stat that came across after the game Saturday? So Saban in his 17 years at Alabama had only lost 4 games to unranked opponents, and now DeBoer's done that in less than 2 years. But it's something we've talked about twofold with Bama. Number one, their name is why they're like the Yankees. Their name is always synonymous with success in college football. But number two, and actually this will tie into a third point, is they just, unfortunately, and Saban was spot on about this when he got out of there, transfer portal. they don't. That's the name of the game now. And Alabama does not use the transfer portal. I mean, they did bring in a couple of Notre Dame guys, but they don't use the transfer portal well. Their recruiting is not as what it used to be, and their quarterback position has dropped tremendously in the last several years from when Saban was there. We talked about how inconsistent Jalen Milroe was in his time there. Ty Simpson, I got to tell you, I've watched Ty Simpson play. He doesn't strike me as a guy that I think is going to have a lot of success. Now, it also doesn't help either when your top receiver gets hurt. You didn't have your running back Jam Miller, and you're not going to have him back until the SEC opener against Georgia at the end of the month. And you got some key players on that team that are hurt. I mean, think about how you went in as a 2-touchdown favorite and you ended up losing by 2 touchdowns, a 28-point swing. And losing to Florida State. Now, we don't know how well Florida State's going to be this year, but all you can take it is off of last year. And remember, Florida State had one of the worst seasons you can ever think of, especially off of expectations. You go from 2-10, and now you win pretty convincingly too. I mean, I feel like that game wasn't even as close as the final score indicated.
Oh no, it wasn't.
So yeah, I think of all the teams that we were talking about that lost, the top teams that had lost Saturday or even into Sunday opening weekend. Between Texas, Clemson, Alabama, and Notre Dame, I think this is the worst of the four. And it puts now a lot of pressure because Bama, I think, can only slip up maybe one more time. And even that might be a reach when you look at the SEC as a whole. I think Notre Dame also is in a bit of trouble too. We'll get to them. But yeah, this is not a good start. And you've already seen some reaction on social media about how people think that DeBoer should be fired. I mean, we had to pump the brakes a little bit there. They're not going to making this switch overnight like that. If you basically fired DeBoer, you're basically giving up on the season already. I mean, what does that tell your team there that you're going to give up on them that fast? I think the coaching is a little bit, but the roster, the talent's just not from Alabama standards what it used to be like.
Yeah, and that has a lot to do with NIL and the transfer portal. And that's because in the old days, in Saban's dominant era, and I'm not saying DeBoer, I mean, first of all, part of it is just that he's Saban and he did it better than anybody else. But like at the time, he was able to just like load his team with the best talent to the point where his like backups were better than a lot of teams' starters. And you just can't do that anymore because those backups can, get a good deal and go somewhere else. They can get a good NIL deal and be a starter somewhere else. I also think that these Southern teams didn't a lot of these SEC teams, a lot of these Southern teams didn't respond great to the NIL and Big Ten and transfer portal, and Big Ten teams did. And my theory is that I think that under the old system, geography mattered more than money. And now money matters more than geography. So in that region of the country, that's where you have in the southeast region of the country and in Texas, that general region. If you draw like a circle around that region of the country, that's where you have the best football talent. But now with the NIL and the transfer portal, money matters more and geography matters less. And Big Ten schools, the schools that are north of the Mason-Dixon line, they have more money. Their donors probably make more money than SEC graduates do on average. And so they have more money coming in, and it's easier for them to stack their roster. Now, stack their rosters with great talent. I mean, some of it is a little bit of a coincidence. Like there's always things that are a little bit cyclical, but I don't think it can be fully explained. Like the change in college football. Like I also think a lot of in the SEC, they were disproportionately illegally paying players. I think that was or giving them like the benefits they weren't allowed to. I think that was another reason for it. But like there's just an obvious shift in this. I mean, look, it's hard for everybody saying Kalen DeBoer should be fired. I think that's an overreact. First of all, people forget you have to buy out their contracts. It's not like you fire them in like a regular job and you don't pay them. You still have to pay them. So you have to buy out their contract. And on top of that, you have these NIL budgets. You can't afford to fire Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, just go ask A&M about Jimbo Fisher, how much they had to pay him when they bought him out.
So, yeah, I just think a lot of it is an overreaction. I think you're right. Alabama fans are like the Yankee fans of college football is how I would put it. I think that's the closest comparison.
But sometimes it could just be as simple as the quarterback position's just gotten worse.
Well, I will say, I think that's true, but like Alabama has always been able to win with like very like mediocre quarterbacks. I mean, and not only have they won, but they've also had rosters that could have won championships with mediocre quarterbacks. I mean, do you remember who the quarterback was when they won in 2015?
Was it
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was Jake Coker.
Jake Coker, yes. And where is he?
I don't even know if he ever even sniffed the NFL. I mean,
I don't think he ever went pro. I mean,
exactly. I mean, the year before that, it was Blake Sims, and that was another really good Alabama team that could have, and they didn't, but they could have won a national championship.
Yeah.
So, and then in 2021, the year that the 2020 season, the COVID year, Mac Jones was their quarterback. And
he had at least 1 year in the pros. I mean, that's the thing. You had to see some of these guys going pro and have some success. Like Mac Jones had a good rookie year. Jalen Hurts before he transferred, he's been good. Tua, as long as he's healthy, he's had a pretty decent career in the NFL. AJ McCarron made the pros. So, I mean, these guys do go pro. I don't know what Jalen Milroe, if he can be an NFL quarterback, but we'll.
Yeah, but the point is that like Alabama's won championships with very forgettable quarterbacks. So I don't even know if it's so much a quarterback problem as much as it just seems like it's the whole team that's the problem.
The thing is, though, is I only bring up the quarterback position because the rest of the team could have gotten by with. I think you even said this, can get by with average quarterback play, but when the rest of the team is average and the quarterback's average,
that's true.
Then it starts to get noticed even more.
That is true. That's why they were able to get away with that. All right, so that's our show this week. Obviously, there's some more college football topics. I'll get to it on leftovers.
But I will say it's great to have it back.
And also Forever Power 5. You could tune into that show too, and we'll talk about all the college.
I'll tell you what, though, it's September. It's great to have it back. It feels like fall a little bit down here. So
yeah.
You know what? And I will say this: don't blink, because before you know it, it's going to be It's going to be Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. It's going to fly by.
Yeah, it will. And then the weather is going to be cold, and we're all going to be miserable. At least up here.
You're right.
All right. So that's our show this week. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DiMart, Johnny at Montalbano NY. You can follow the podcast at MTGPETB across social media, and the Empty the Bench Network across social media at ETB Network. We'll be back next week for another edition of Moving the Goalpost. See you then.
Yeah.